If you've been thinking about building your brand, the best place to start is by someone who does it for a living. So you're going to want to listen to this episode where we dive into building your branding empire. Hello, lovely dynamic women. I am Diane Rolston, your host. And here today at the Web Summit, I'm interviewing the amazing Kat Howe. Hi, Kat.
Hi, Diane. How are you doing?
Good. I'm excited to have you here. I've been reading all about you and the cool things you've been doing.
Thank you.
And I know my listeners are going to love it. But it'd be better if you tell us a little bit about yourself so that we know kind of a little bit of your history and what you're up to.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, hello everyone. I'm Kat Howe. I am co-founder and executive creative director of How & How. We are a branding agency. We have studios in London and in Los Angeles. I set up the company probably about 4 years ago. I've had a bit of an unconventional route into this business of mine, although now it all makes sense and all the jigsaw puzzle pieces have come together. But I actually used to be a journalist a long time ago. I used to write for several national newspapers in the UK. And then, I was a design critic, but then I felt that criticizing design wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to get back into the making. I always loved designing and drawing, so retraining graphics, went to St. Martin's in London. And then we bounced around a few places, my husband and I, set up a few businesses together, all with a creative slant. And then after we sold one of them, we then decided that we just wanted to simplify everything and get everything back to basics. And the agency is basically a vehicle for all the experience we've gathered along the way. So the writing, the narrative, the storytelling I learned from journalism, the arts background I learned when I was doing my MA and working in various studios. And it's the perfect combination now, I realize. Just took me a while to get there.
Yeah, well, you did make a pretty big pivot, and I will add in there that you are an award-winning journalist. This wasn't just you happened to do it. It wasn't really, your thing and you weren't doing a great job. You were doing a great job and winning awards.
Yeah.
Was there like a pivotal moment where you went, that's it, I'm done, I'm moving on? Or was it a series of things?
Yeah, I think it was one review I might have gotten. I wrote a review about a theatre company, and it was not a great performance, if I'm honest. It's my job to basically give stars and award stars, and didn't award them many stars because it really wasn't great. But I remember one of the actors or something wrote back to me or wrote something about that I should have probably stayed home with my knitting and I shouldn't have gone to the performance. It's not a bad thing at all to say, but they were like, maybe she didn't like it. And then I thought, well, actually, it's, they're probably right. I think criticism and writing as a critic is all fair and good. But then I sort of agreed. I was like, I won't stay home with my knitting, but maybe I'll do something else because, actually having the guts to do something creative and to put yourself on stage, it was so much more brave than, in fact, what I was doing. So, yes, I think that was a pivotal moment. I haven't actually thought about it before, but after that, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. And that can be for someone else to do, but I'd rather put myself in the position of that artist doing that than being on the other side and criticizing, their efforts and their endeavors, because it just didn't feel right.
Well, what I'm hearing is that you prefer now to team up with the person that before maybe you were criticizing because that was your job.
Yeah.
But now you team up with them and help them to kind of shine in their best light rather than have the broccoli in the teeth moment where other people are telling them they're not looking good. Yeah?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So do you mean in terms of clients or do you mean in terms of people in the team or?
Well, we can go both ways, but why don't we look first at, so your company is How & How, because you founded it with your husband.
Yes.
We can get into a whole episode, I'm sure, around working well with your spouse. But let's focus on what makes your agency different. Because as we know, listeners, when you start a business, you have competition. So what makes you different? And then later, I really want to touch on what you're doing within your own company with gender parity and all that.
Great. Let me do that.
Let's touch this competition piece.
Thank you. I suppose my husband and I used to work at the BBC. He was there for about 10 years doing the audio branding and marketing side. So he's come from a broadcasting background and he's quite technical. I'm the opposite. But when we, I suppose, landed on the scene about 4 years ago, if I'm honest, quite a lot of design agencies, particularly in London, were like, who the hell are these guys? We've never heard of them before. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Because we came in all guns blazing and we didn't have any connections in design whatsoever. I'd worked in some agencies, but only in Australia, and really in terms of transferable, networks, it wasn't viable at all. And we arrived, and I think because we've been gathering this information to put into the agency for pretty much throughout our entire careers without really even knowing it. When we started, we had some real fundamentals baked in, which I think makes us different to lots of agencies, which historically are like founded by two designers who maybe have worked together at an agency, who then go off and start their own thing, and then but they don't really have any of the business experience, or some of them do, I'm sure, but most probably don't. We're different in the sense that narrative is huge and storytelling is huge, because obviously for my journalism and wanting to uncover the truth about things and trying to excavate this story, it's so transferable to brands, clients that we work with, because the narrative storytelling part before we get into the design is hugely important. So we place a lot of emphasis on that. I think more so than other agencies who probably focus more on the visual, and it's like, make it look good. But we're like, no, obviously just like a person, a brand is like a person. Yeah. You assess someone by how they look, but also how they articulate and how they speak. And, you're all these different cues of like, oh, this, person's wearing a colourful jacket. Wow, they must be really expressive or like joyful. There are all these things that we're always taking in. So the narrative is huge. So that's that. And I think just the fact that we place a lot of emphasis on quality always. Obviously that goes without saying. But then again, my journalism background means that I'm constantly trying to push out always trying to showcase the team and showcase different members of the team and give them limelight as well. We've been fortunate enough to be able to bake in certain values as well into the company from the very beginning, which has been really good.
Yeah, we've been hearing lots actually at the Web Summit about values and building that in. Now, I have to read here, something that's important for you is that the company enrich lives, nature, and founders. Can you share more about that and how you put it into practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a B Corp. It took us 2 years to get there, which was important, and I'm so glad we are. Part of that means that it's almost like a moral duty, really, to work with companies who benefit people and planet. It makes us feel good, it makes our designers feel good, they're working on something good. We have a flat veto against working with oil or gas companies. We're part of the Clean Creatives Collective, who basically are a collective of agencies just saying no to oil or gas or not helping them tell their story. And I think, I got a little bit sidetracked there. Yes, of course, people and planet. But I think it's just really important, because we are lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to turn away work when we don't feel it aligns with our values. We have something called the moral compass in our agency, where if a job comes in where we're like, oh, is this good or not? We actually ask the whole team to vote. So everyone in the agency votes. We had this recently with a really, really big toy company, but they only made plastic toys. And we asked them like, well, would you ever think about wooden toys or something made or sustainable, or recycled plastic toys, or like a toy share scheme or something? No, flat no. So we knew that we probably didn't want to do it, but we thought we'd ask the whole team, and then we all voted and we all decided to turn that work away. It was a really big job, but we also just knew if you're working on something for 6 to 8 to 10 months, that relationship has to be solid from the start. You want to feel like you're actually going to make a difference and use your creativity for good.
Yes. So listeners, did you catch that? The whole thing around moral compass and turning to your team members to help you make those decisions and allowing your gut to make that decision of, is this right or wrong for us? Because it's not just a one day. Like you said, it could be 6 to 8 months, it could be years of repeat business, and you want it to be the right people.
And it's true. And you want to also make sure what's in your portfolio reflects who you are as much as possible. So making sure you create that to be representative of who you are as an agency is not just great for the clients who you want to work with in the future, but also the sorts of people you want to work with in your studio as well.
Yes, that's a big thing to be thinking about. Now, you've talked a little bit about kind of honoring the thoughts of your team. You do have 2 different locations, LA and London. How do you kind of keep that culturally when there's 2 time zones and 2 ways of living?
Yeah.
Do you have 2 sets of values? You're like, how do you do that?
One set of universal values, thankfully. Yeah, I mean, I think the London team are very dependent. We've got a great leadership team over there. But we try and do is we have an all hands every Friday where the whole studio gets together and we do a call and we go through all the stuff from the week. And we use it as an opportunity to talk about the wins we've won, the jobs we've lost. We talk about new starters, but we talk about press we've all got. We big people up at the end and we do shout outs, so everyone has a shout out for team members. So it's an opportunity to refresh everyone every week with the sorts of values that we have. We also go through any new starters. We actually do a values presentation to them where we're like, we are expressive, we are ambitious, we are whatever. And I think that really helps to just make sure that we're all on the same page, even though we're in different time zones. And obviously I wake up very early in order to get as much time. So my day starts at 5 a.m, but then I'm done with my calls by 10 and then do the rest of the LA stuff. So yeah, it can work.
Yeah. Well, I just want quick question in there. A lot of our listeners, they are moms.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, I could never get up at 5. You have children?
Yes.
How many and how old?
I've got 2 kids. I've got a son who's 10 and a daughter who's 8. Yeah, so
you're busy all around.
Yeah, busy, and it's good now they're in a good age where they actually get themselves up, and as mums as well, we all know that waking up at 5 has been a thing that we've done a lot in many years. So it seems obviously a bit ironic that now I'm doing it without having my kids wake me up, and I do it myself. But yeah, no, then they just they get themselves up now and they sort themselves out, and I always make sure I have breakfast on the table ready for them when they wake up, and then they just walk to school. So
it sounds like you also get that as your own time in the morning there as well.
Yes.
Kind of jump in and get the day going.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's keep in alignment with your employees, because this was something that I was so impressed with. The International Women's Day just happened.
Yes.
They were saying we're not going to have the gender parity until 2158,
Yes.
potentially. That's like
It's
our
awful.
daughters sort of thing. What are you doing in your company? I was reading about salary transparency by having one of the only tiered transparent salary systems. So tell us more about that, because I really want the listeners to be either looking for this in their employment or looking to bring this in their own companies. Yeah,
sure. So I think one of the benefits of starting the company recently was that when we were like, there are certain fundamental values that we want to bake in. In the creative industry, it's absolutely crazy. Women are still paid about 20% less than men. And also, just even in positions of leadership, there's actually a lot of designers at the beginning, but then when you get to creative director, I think that tails off to 11%. It's really, there's loads of work that needs to be done. Lots of agencies are run by middle-aged white men whose thought to gender parity is probably, I was going to say non-existent, but that's probably a bit harsh. But with what we decided to do was we realised that women, it's really stressful for women when they don't know what anyone else is being paid, because we basically know that men are always being paid more than women. We have this system, and people, I think, when they joined, knew that they were joining that. And in fact, that was a really good way of then knowing that the people who were joining us also believed in the values that we had. And we have a tiering system where basically we have a spreadsheet. It's on our general Slack channel so everyone can see it. And every tier of every position, so you might have a junior, which has 3 tiers, and all that is shown, and everyone knows exactly what salary bracket they're on. And that's fine. And so everyone knows how much equity I have, how much equity my creative director has, or whatever. So it's all very transparent. So an intern can see how much I'm earning, vice versa, obviously. But it's really helped, and particularly the women in the team have really, I don't know, responded so well to that, because A, they're being paid exactly the same as their male colleagues. B, we have a system where it's like, okay, like every one-to-one we have, or every other one-to-one, it's like, cool, how are we going to get you to the next rung? They know what that's going to be. They know where they're going to go. And obviously there are incentives. We do offer bonuses of a certain percentage of salary if someone's done really well. So people, if they really have fire in their belly, they can do more about it. But it's all set. And also, we did this in December last year. We had a really good quarter, which was good because things are a bit shaky in the creative industry at the moment, but we had a really good quarter. And so we decided to give everyone in the agency a 5% pay rise across the board. So all salary brackets then went up by 5% again, intern to, top leadership. And that was great. And everyone was like, well, this is great. So it also means there's flexibility within the tiers. They're not set, but we can all rise together and be seen to be, and everything's visible there.
Someone listening might think that's courageous to put it up to the 5%, and not just be like, oh, here's just a kind of a cash bonus right now, but all the tiers stay the same. So how did you come up with that decision? Because this is a future forward decision for also anyone that comes in.
Exactly. So we had a few people who we were doing lots of hiring at the time, and we hired a few people before we did this in December, and they joined us in January, and we were like, hey, your salary's just gone up. And they were like, cool. So yes, my husband's quite in the figures, and we worked out that we also want to show that, these tiers are flexible and they'll always move up. So you're always going to be, growing with the team. And as we grow, then you will grow as well in terms of your salary. So you can still get a bonus, but you can still be in a high. So we want it to feel dynamic. And
that's so amazing, because the employees can sit in the confidence of knowing, as long as they work harder, where they'll go financially, and then what that can mean for their families and the things the goals that they have in their lives.
Yeah, and we have a profit share scheme as well. So at the end of the year, we pay out a percentage of profits to everyone on the team as well.
Amazing. I bet that is. All of these things are good retention strategies.
Yeah.
not that's your intention.
Well, it sort of is
ROI.
as well, because, I really want to work with people I really like, and I want everyone in the team to also become, colleagues, but also friends, which I believe is actually the case. So I just want everyone to feel like they're winning the whole time. And it's my responsibility, really, as co-CEO as well, to make sure that they want to stay. And if they want to go, then it's my fault. So.
Wow. I love the generosity and then the responsibility that you have on that. That's so good. So now let's switch to the work you do, branding.
Yeah.
What is something that you're seeing in the world right now, some trends that you're seeing in branding right now that are actually working and that aren't just like a flash in the pan?
Yeah, interesting. I think, I don't know.
I mean, substance to them rather than just a trend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, branding. It's so prone to trends, particularly in typography. You start to see the same things, the same typefaces used, the same style of trend in illustration can be really super trendy as well, where it gets referenced in this echo chamber of illustration. You just know you've seen it all before. But I think, that will probably always be the case. We are always trying to differentiate and always trying to find something that's true to the story, and then that makes it, if you're true to the story, it will always be different. But I think things to look out for are always type and illustration trends as a watch out. I mean, obviously more people are using AI, and I do believe that the agencies who are using it the best are the ones that aren't, scared by it, that use it in a way that can enhance the creative process. I think that's a trend. Some agencies are really reacting against it and saying it's awful and like the devil, but I'm a lot more optimistic about it. And I think that agencies who are using it well, because sometimes you can see stuff that's made with AI really badly. Either it's done really badly or it's overused and it's replacing other stuff, which I don't think is good. But yeah, a trend to use it in a thoughtful way to either help with ideation or proof of concept or things like that, I think is a trend that's seeing more of, which is quite interesting. Something I'm always telling designers is like, we're trying to make a big push in the agency in terms of seeing the narrative department as part of the design, and narrative being the same as creative. And I'm trying to do a little bit of that with AI, where I'm like, well, we can paint with words when we're copywriting and we're doing the strategy, but we can also paint with prompts as well in AI. So if you think about how you use, a Gen AI prompt in a particular way to almost like paint a picture, certain words, certain prompts create different outcomes. And I think it's, where we can have a little bit more ownership and start to create more original work with the new tools that are, this new phenomenon that we've got. I think, that's the trend that is used correctly is really exciting and very helpful.
Yeah, I like how you shared though around it being a creative endeavor rather than more of an analytical and kind of lacking.
Yeah, exactly.
Joy.
I mean, you can say David Hockney, who I love as an artist, he did an exhibition many years ago where he used an iPad and he just drew on his iPad, and then he could sell the digital. I mean, this was like maybe 8 years ago, something. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's not real art." But he argued, I think, quite successfully that really it's just another medium, and he was just using the iPad, but he still had to choose the colors. He still had to use his finger to do whatever. So I sort of see it a bit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And so I read on one interview that you were in that you spend about 80% of your time in Slack.
Oof. Yeah. Eek. Busted.
Well, but,
Yeah.
just wondering, you don't have to focus on that, but how do you schedule your day, plan your day? Because you've got client work and employees and business building and the whole thing that you need to be doing at your level.
Yeah.
So how do you organize that?
Well, it's actually being in LA has actually helped sort of compartmentalize my day a bit more. So obviously I'm up early, I'm up at 5. It's annoying because I want to do my hair, my makeup. My husband can just roll out of bed about 20 minutes later and he's fine. I have to get up a bit earlier just because I also want to be, quite often they're client calls or whatever. And I want to, I feel like I need to start the day properly. But mostly in that first section of the day, it's any calls with the UK or with clients in Europe. I also schedule specific mentor sessions, one-to-ones, aside from design one-to-ones that my creative team have with all the women in my agency. And that is purely focused around how are we going to like amplify your career? So it's very different to what they're doing day to day. This is purely a mentorship slot that we have. Again, for the studio manager, I have one with my creative director. She, they both need the same things. They're looking at, so I do that. Those are slots that I have, and I probably have 2 or 3 of those a week because of the amount of amazing women we have in the company. And so around those, and then obviously around any client calls, any calls about new biz, that all gets pretty much sandwiched into those hours in the morning. And then the rest of the day actually is quite nice because it's a bit less because there's less team in LA and it's just a bit more getting through stuff than obviously working on biz dev over here. And yeah, making sure I'm ready to pick up my kids as well at 3. And then I get back to work when they come back after they've done homework. And so it's a little bit
of a balance.
All over the place.
A little bit of a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. But key thing is you're putting in there the cash flow activities. So speaking with clients as well as new leads and everything and really fitting that in and making sure that's there to keep the business going. With many of our listeners, they're purpose-driven businesses. I know we're at Web Summit, so there's a lot of tech people that will be listening probably. What is a piece of advice that you would give to your earlier self or someone earlier in their journey that maybe is a creative or a founder or someone and that they're trying to do things differently or better, but still have a successful business?
I mean, my first rule is always like work hard and be nice to people. I think it really, what you put in really does, you get out what you put in. Yeah. But also networking and getting yourself a good reputation from early on is so important because actually you have to rely on those people to then, refer, people onto you, and that's the only way you can really grow. So I think it's like starting out with a vision of stuff that you want to produce and that you want to define, you. It might mean just having to do a few things, not pro bono, but a few self-initiated projects where you can really showcase what you're about. This is at the very beginning. Then I suppose it's, yes, of course, working really hard, trying to figure out who you can target, who you can speak to. But then again, like the being nice to people bit as well as, I suppose, with any good brand and something we apply to our branding process is that really a successful brand occupies like the most important real estate in the world, which is basically the corner of someone's mind. And if you can get that, that's basically what we're aspiring to achieve. And in reality, a brand really only exists in the minds of its customers. It's how you're talked about. And I suppose there's more of a nuance in the sense that like it's not just the people who buy it, but it's the people who talk about it and refer that onto their friends. And renown creates value. Fame creates value as well. So if you're able to, figure out a way of, through obviously skill and a differentiated idea and a differentiated way of putting with your proposition, but also then being able to that differentiation, get people to talk about it and to share it with their friends. And, that's very difficult to do. But if you can have that, I suppose at the very beginning, making sure that you look different from other people and that you sound different, but not because you want to be different, but just because you're trying to uncover what that thing is in your company that's completely unique to you, and then leaning into that completely and leaning into that 100% fundamentally. So, and then once you've got that differentiation, then if you can start talking to more and more people about it, people will be really interested in that too. So it's a slow process, but getting the fundamentals right at the beginning is really important.
Yeah. And also what I'm hearing from that is, as you're showing up networking, as you're being that, the essence of your brand is you.
Absolutely.
And how you show up.
Authenticity.
Being unique.
I was on a roundtable a few days ago about in the conference here about how we can keep brands authentic in the age of AI, which was really exciting roundtable that we were on. Everyone had an opinion about it, but I just kept on saying that people can tell when something isn't authentic and not, and consumers can be quite punishing as well when they smell that perhaps a brand isn't being authentic. We only have to look at Nike, who have got a great slogan. They're all emotionally driven. But the minute they start, and they haven't had a great few quarters because the leadership decided they wanted to focus more on the numbers and the metrics other than the actual inspiration and emotion behind the brand. And they took it was a bit of a difficult lesson to learn, but it just shows that people are driven by emotion. If we use Nike again as an example, authenticity and just living in that emotional feeling that they're trying to produce, which is just like all about you're living your best self, winning, succeeding, that drama. It's nothing to do actually with the products they're selling, because no one really cares whether something's made of polyester or nylon or whatever. Like, that's not what they're trying to sell. They're trying to sell the emotion of the brand. But authenticity is being true to that emotion that you're trying to sell.
So emotions have a place in branding.
Always.
Yes.
Biggest place.
So many nuggets here. One of my favorites actually is this: thinking about how you want your company to be in the future to your employees and the impact you have in the world, not just to your clients. Now, as we go into this rapid fire round.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
I'm going to wrap up with this. Who is the favorite client you've ever branded?
Definitely a company called Free Tree. They are a tree planting app. They are toggled to a Chrome extension, essentially. They're toggled to a company called Ecosia, who basically is a search engine that plants trees.
Good.
They were super fun brand. The product was great and doing amazing things. So basically, whenever you shop online, you use this little widget and it plants trees depending on where you shop. So it has over 40,000 affiliated shops that it works with. And the brand was all about creating fuzz and connecting this warm and fuzzy feeling inside with the fact that you're planting fuzziness outside. So it was like fuzz was really... so we have these little characters that like pop and fuzz. And also, this was at the very beginning when we started, but instead of being paid a fee, we asked to get paid in trees instead, because obviously they could plant trees. So the CEO was like, "Oh, we've got a budget. It's not a very big budget." And I said, "Scrap the budget, or scrap the fee. Just pay us in trees." Obviously, all my team got paid. I took the hit, but it was worth it. I don't care. I think so. We planted about 60,000 trees as a result of that work. So it's sort of, I love it for lots of different reasons.
Okay. Next one. Just give us the name so that you don't have to dig yourself a hole. Favorite brand that you would love to rebrand? Do you have a list? You're like, they're doing terribly.
Do you know what? I wish I could, but I don't even want to mention anyone big, because I don't really know if I want to rebrand anyone big. I mean, I might be eating my words in a few years, but the companies that we really want to work with are just the ones with a good idea and just are actually brave. And I find that the bigger the company, the less brave it becomes. So so-and-so is just rebranded, I don't know, Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just think, it just also just feels like a bit of a nightmare. I might be eating my words later on, but I do think it's the companies that we don't know about necessarily that need the work the best. Some of the bigger ones. Yeah.
These companies will have the biggest impact in the world.
Yeah,
what I'm hearing.
exactly. And less stakeholder management, and where you can actually make a difference as opposed to like a tiny bit of kerning on something and a tiny tweak of a cut, then you're like, okay, well.
Yeah. Okay, last piece. This is specifically for our listeners.
Yeah.
What is one action item that our listeners should take this week in order to build their brand, move their brand, help their brand?
Yeah, I talked a bit about narrative. Well, I think I've talked quite a lot about narrative, you might have noticed. But I think maybe if they took a pen, piece of paper and just wrote down why you started the business in the first place. What was the problem you were trying to solve? Because I think one thing I find is that a lot of companies that we work with, we're always working on the solution, and that's great, but they don't actually address the problem, and the problem is the thing that needs to be fixed. And indeed, the problem is part of the message as well that you're trying to convey, like, we are fixing this problem, not necessarily the features or the product solution. So write down why you set up the company in the first place, and then try and work out what it is that is completely different to you and different, that differentiates you from someone else in your sphere of competitors. Because working that out, and don't make it be about, oh well, I've got this product feature, or I've got like more bag sizes than, it's got nothing about that. What is it that you are, what makes you unique, what problem are you trying to solve? And once you've got that, then just trying to work out, how you can go about communicating that, which I know is very different. So just write it down and see if you're and see if you're addressing those. Yeah.
So good. Well, listeners, Kat Howe gave us today kind of really a nice blueprint for how to build a successful global business. Also, how to be a mom and run a successful business, and how to be a good employer. Like, come on, all the things you're doing to impact not just the women in your company, but to set a standard that business should be following. So thank you for doing that with the gender pay gap and gender parity that you're attacking, and just building beautiful brands that make a positive impact. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And so for all of our listeners out there, make sure that you share this episode with someone that you know in business, or someone who's starting out, or someone maybe needs a rebrand, and send them Kat's way. We are going to have all of the information about her company and her bio and everything in the show notes. So make sure that you click through, check that out, and hit subscribe and write us a review, because why not, eh? That's how we get found out by more people. So until next time, everyone, stay dynamic. Bye.